So imagine stepping into a ring with a 280-pound apex predator, a guy who has literally ended careers for a living.
Right. Terrifying.
Exactly. I mean, the bell hasn't even rung yet, and you already know you've lost. That is the kind of psychological chokehold Roman Reigns usually has on his opponent.
Absolutely. It's suffocating.
Yeah. He doesn't just beat you physically. He mentally braces you before you even lace up your boots.
Yeah.
But on March 16th, CM Punk didn't just break that chokehold. He walked right up and punched the tribal chief in the mouth.
Which was just wild to watch.
It really was. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We're looking at a huge stack of official previews, backstage highlights, and match results leading directly into the March 23rd, 2026 edition of Monday Night Raw.
Broadcasting live nationwide on Netflix, by the way.
Right, exactly. The road to WrestleMania is nearing its absolute boiling point right now. And our mission for you today isn't just to list who's fighting who.
No, that'd be boring. We want to really get into the weeds here.
Yeah, we're here to unpack the intricate psychology, the shifting alliances, and just the sheer desperation driving these athletes right now. So, okay, let's unpack this. Starting with that explosive moment between Punk and Reigns.
Let's do it.
Because I have to be honest here, looking at the footage, I don't buy the narrative that Punk was executing some, masterclass 4D chess move.
Wait, really? You see it differently than a calculated first strike.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the context for a second. Punk knows he is stepping into the ring at WrestleMania with a guy who has held the industry hostage for years.
Yeah, Reigns completely dictates the pace.
Right. He dictates the tension. He demands absolute subservience. So when Punk laid him out on March 16th, to me that looked like raw panic.
Panic. That's an interesting read.
Yeah, it looked like a veteran who suddenly realized, I cannot beat Roman Reigns in a fair, prolonged psychological war. So he just threw a desperation haymaker to prove to himself that Reigns can actually bleed.
I see what you're saying, but...
So what does this all mean, though? Did Punk actually establish dominance, or did he just tip his hand and show Roman exactly how terrified he really is?
Well, what's fascinating here is the assumption that panic and strategy are mutually exclusive.
Okay, fair.
Because, even if Punk's strike was born out of this urgent need to disrupt Reigns' aura, the mechanical result is exactly the same, right? Reigns is suddenly playing defense.
Which he never does.
Exactly. Historically, Roman Reigns operates on a frequency of absolute control. His entire tribal chief persona relies on this unhurried, methodical dismantling of an opponent's confidence.
Yeah, you're supposed to wait for his music, wait for his entrance.
Wait for his monologue, wait for the inevitable spear, you just wait. But by landing that preemptive physical blow, Punk completely subverted that timeline.
He flipped the board.
He really did. He didn't just inflict physical trauma, he stole the steering wheel.
He forced an immediate reaction instead of a calculated one. And we saw that reaction firsthand.
We certainly did.
The sources highlight that Reigns delivered this incredibly passionate, intense address to the crowd. But... and this is the kicker, it happened after Raw went off the air.
Right.
That detail feels massive to me. Why off air?
Oh, it is the most telling detail of the entire altercation. Think about it. A televised, scripted response allows Reigns to maintain that veneer of the untouchable champion. Right?
Yeah, he can get his talking points in, look strong for the Netflix cameras.
Exactly. But an off-air promo, that is raw, unfiltered, emotional spillage. It suggests a level of genuine fury that just could not be neatly packaged into a broadcast segment.
It's messy.
So messy. The echo in the arena, the unpolished delivery, it shows that Punk's punch actually penetrated the armor.
Wow. So you're saying Punk actually got exactly what he wanted?
I am. In establishing mental dominance before a major event, forcing your opponent into a state of emotional reactivity is the ultimate prize.
Because they aren't thinking clearly anymore.
Right. Reigns wasn't delivering a sermon from on high anymore. He was furiously shouting back at a man who just disrespected him. Punk lowered Reigns to his level.
That's a brilliant way to look at it. But, surgical, calculated strikes aren't the only way to topple a giant in this environment.
Definitely not.
Sometimes you don't pick the psychological lock, you just drive a literal freight train through the front door. Which brings us to a wildly different approach to disruption.
Oh, I know exactly where you're going with this.
Yeah, let's talk about the absolute sheer audacity we are seeing from the next generation. Specifically, Oba Femi.
Man, this is where the landscape shifts from tense psychological thrillers to absolute horror movies for the veterans.
That is the perfect way to frame it, a horror movie. So Brock Lesnar the Beast returns to Raw.
Always a scary sight.
Always.
Yeah.
And he's furious, looking for payback on Seth Rollins, so he initiates a WrestleMania Open Challenge. He is standing in the middle of the ring, essentially daring the locker room to sacrifice themselves. And on March 16th, Oba Femi just walks out and answers it.
And he doesn't just survive the encounter.
No, he completely decimates Lesnar. He hits him with this earth-shaking maneuver called the Fall from Grace.
Which is just terrifying to watch.
I mean, we are talking about lifting a 280-pound former NCAA division heavyweight champion high into the air and just driving him into the canvas.
And we have to keep in mind, Femi had just come off a brutal, grinding slugfest with Rusev on March 9th.
Right. The Bulgarian Brute. That match was a car crash.
Exactly. So Femi was already battered. He was already tested in really deep waters. But dropping Brock Lesnar like that, it defies every piece of conventional wisdom we have about veteran invincibility.
It really does. Yeah. Which makes me want to push back a little here. Like, you always hear about the unbeatable beast, but Oba Femi just stepped up and dropped him. So is Lesnar losing his edge, or are we just witnessing a completely new, fearless breed of athlete?
Well, this raises an important question about the fundamental vulnerability of the Open Challenge itself.
Okay, how so?
Psychologically, issuing an Open Challenge is an act of supreme arrogance.
Oh, totally.
It is a veteran stating to the entire roster, I am so inherently superior to all of you that I do not require a training camp. I don't need to study film or have a game plan.
Right, like my baseline violence is enough to break whoever walks down that ramp.
Exactly. It's the ultimate flex. But it leaves you entirely blind to what's coming. Lesnar was probably expecting some terrified mid-card athlete to walk out.
Someone he could just intimidate with a single glare before tossing them across the ring.
Right, but precisely the opposite walked through the curtain. Oba Femi operates completely devoid of the psychological baggage that paralyzes most of Lesnar's opponents.
Because they usually lose before the match even starts, right?
Exactly. For a decade, athletes have lost to Lesnar in the locker room before their music even hits. They fear his legacy. But Oba Femi represents a generational shift that does not revere the old guard.
He wants to physically replace them.
He intends to. Look at the mechanics of his match against Rusev a week prior.
Yeah.
Rusev is a brick wall.
Oh, yeah.
Going blow for blow with him requires immense cardiovascular endurance and a massive threshold for sheer physical attrition. Femi didn't just survive Rusev. He absorbed that punishment and immediately pivoted to lifting Brock Lesnar off his feet.
Which is insane. The biomechanics of the fall from grace against someone of Lesnar's density.
Yeah.
It's staggering.
It really is.
I mean, it requires explosive hip momentum and absolute core stability, not to mention the grip strength to control a thrashing heavyweight. Femi didn't just beat him, he manhandled him.
And that physical manhandling shatters the myth of the beast. Femi didn't wait his turn, He didn't negotiate a contract or build a slow burn rivalry.
He just saw an open door and kicked it off the hinges.
Exactly. He announced his arrival by dropping the biggest threat in the room. It is a violent rejection of the established hierarchy.
It's incredible to watch. But, while Oba Femi acts as this terrifying lone wolf wrecking ball operating purely on isolated physical dominance, that is a rare exception in this ecosystem.
Oh, for sure. Very rare.
Right, because if you look at the majority of competitors trying to secure their spot on the road to WrestleMania, they rely heavily on a complex web of alliances, mentors, and backstage politics. The lone wolf might get a highlight reel, but factions win championships.
The pack strategy offers something raw power cannot, which is a safety net.
Exactly.
But the strength of that net depends entirely on the material it's woven from. And right now, we are witnessing two entirely divergent philosophies on how to build a team under intense pressure.
Yeah, and here's where it gets really interesting. Let's dissect the men's tag scene first.
Let's do it.
You have Paul Heyman, who is practically the archetype of a corporate puppet master.
The ultimate manipulator.
Truly. He has issued a cold, calculated directive to Austin Theory and Logan Paul. Take down Jimmy and Jay, the Usos, for the World Tag Team title.
Right.
Heyman engineered this alliance. He looked at a spreadsheet of assets, saw two massive egos with high physical upside, and smashed them together for a specific return on investment.
A purely transactional relationship.
Exactly. Now, contrast that purely transactional setup with what is happening in the women's tag scene. Bayley has been dragged through the mud recently.
She has had a really rough go of it.
Yeah. On March 9th, she lost a grueling #1 contenders gauntlet match. Then a week later on March 16th, she failed to capture the Women's Intercontinental Championship from AJ Lee.
Right, so physically depleted and psychologically shattered.
Exactly. But then she receives this deeply genuine, heartfelt pep talk from Lyra Valkyria. Lyra doesn't offer her contract, she offers her belief.
Which is huge.
It is. And now an inspired Bayley and Lyra are teaming up against the lethal Kabuki warriors Asuka and Kairi Sane, hoping to earn a shot at the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, the Irresistible Forces.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the in-ring mechanics of these two teams will be dictated entirely by their origin stories.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, let's look at Theory and Paul under Heyman. Narcissism is a powerful motivator, but a terrible adhesive.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. In a tag team match, success relies on peripheral vision and sacrifice. You have to instinctively know where your partner is, and you have to be willing to take a physical hit to save them from a pinfall.
Yeah.
So, do Austin Theory and Logan Paul strike you as men willing to dive in front of a proverbial bullet for one another?
Not a chance in hell. If things go south, they will be looking for the exit, not the hot tag.
Exactly. They are united by mutual self-interest, which means the second the match stops benefiting them individually, the alliance fractures.
Super fragile.
Contrast that with Lyra Valkyria and Bayley. This is transformational leadership in action.
Yeah, that pep talk was everything.
After two high-profile, devastating losses, Bayley's psychological armor was cracked. In Heyman's corporate model, she would be discarded as a depreciating asset.
Heyman would drop her in a heartbeat.
Without a second thought. But Lyra recognized that Bayley's ring IQ and physical capabilities were fully intact. She simply needed her confidence re-anchored. That pep talk was a vital strategic recalibration.
It wasn't just, hey, feel better. It was tactical.
Right. When Bayley and Lyra face the Kabuki warriors, they won't just be fighting for a title opportunity. Bayley will be fighting to validate Lyra's belief in her, and Lyra will be fighting to protect her friend.
That is powerful.
An alliance built on shared vulnerability and mutual support creates an incredibly resilient dynamic in the ring. They will cover each other's blind spots because their bond extends beyond a win-loss record.
It really makes you wonder how that dynamic translates to, like, any collaborative environment outside the ring. What stands out to you about which leadership style yields better results under pressure?
Right, it's a huge real-world parallel.
But as much as I appreciate the power of mutual support, we really have to look at the dark underbelly of these locker rooms now.
Oh, here we go.
Because while some people are busy building alliances, others are specializing in destroying them. We need to talk about the outright betrayals and the incredibly bizarre psychological warfare tactics being deployed to unbalance opponents before the bell even rings.
The tactical application of paranoia?
Yes. Paranoia is exactly what Becky Lynch is weaponizing. Our sources note that the man grabbed a microphone on Raw to address her actions from March 16th, where she viciously blindsided the current Women's Intercontinental Champion, AJ Lee.
Right. It wasn't a face-to-face challenge at all.
No, it was an ambush from the shadows. But if we are talking about unbalancing an opponent, we absolutely cannot ignore the wildest situation on the entire roster right now.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
Grayson Waller is preparing to face Javon Evans, the young OG. But Waller isn't just preparing for a hyper-athletic opponent. He's dealing with a literal curse.
A literal curse. It's wild.
It is. So Waller and Kofi Kingston apparently rejected this eccentric competitor named Danhausen, who had requested to join their faction, the New Day.
Right. They said no.
And so Danhausen, who, by the way, has been roaming arenas handing out gifts to fans with a giant T-shirt, Cannon retaliated by cursing the faction.
As one does.
Naturally.
Yeah.
So now Waller has to step into the ring against a lightning-fast opponent while looking over his shoulder for a man in face paint wielding merchandise artillery. I mean, it sounds like a comedy sketch.
It sounds totally absurd on the surface, yes. But the underlying mechanism of both these situations is identical.
You mean Becky's ambush and Danhausen's curse?
Exactly. It's cognitive overload. Let's break down the physical toll of paranoia in elite competition.
Okay, I'm tracking.
When Becky Lynch blindsides AJ Lee, she isn't just inflicting bruising. She is infecting Lee's training camp with anxiety.
Oh, wow.
Instead of focusing entirely on her cardiovascular conditioning or her match strategy, Lee is now dealing with the adrenal dumps of anticipating another jump scare.
She's always on edge.
Right. When she walks down the ramp, she is scanning the crowd. When she climbs the turnbuckle, she is hesitating for a fraction of a second to check her blind spot.
And in this sport, a fraction of a second is the difference between retaining a championship and waking up staring at the arena lights. That hesitation is deadly.
Deadly. And exactly the same principle applies to Grayson Waller and the Danhausen curse.
The RAM analogy, right?
Yes. Think of a competitor's focus like a computer's RAM. You need 100% of your processing power to track the movements of someone as incredibly explosive as Javon Evans.
Because Evans attacks from unpredictable angles at breakneck speeds.
Exactly. So if Grayson Waller's brain is running a heavy background application, wondering if the lights are going to flicker, listening for the pop of a t-shirt cannon, or just dwelling on the sheer annoyance of this eccentric variable, he is entering the match underpowered.
He's distracted.
It doesn't even matter if Waller logically believes in the supernatural elements of a curse.
Right, just thinking about it is the trap.
The sheer distraction takes up valuable real estate in his mind. It is asymmetric warfare. Danhausen doesn't have to throw a single punch to degrade Waller's reaction time by 5%.
And that 5% is all Javon Evans needs.
Exactly.
So whether it's the threat of a steel chair from the shadows or a flying oversized t-shirt, the goal is to make your opponent shadowbox ghosts instead of fighting the person standing right in front of them.
Precisely.
It is so fascinating how deeply these tactics penetrate the actual physical performance in the ring. And honestly, for you listening, this is exactly why these deep dives matter.
It really is.
Because it is so easy to dismiss these massive neon-lit arena events on Netflix as pure spectacle. But underneath the pyrotechnics, you are watching a masterclass in human nature operating under extreme duress.
Absolutely.
You don't need to be stepping into a wrestling ring to relate to the feeling of imposter syndrome that Bayley is battling, you know.
We've all been there.
Yeah, you've likely experienced the exhaustion of navigating toxic, self-serving colleagues like Theory and Paul, or the absolute necessity of a friend like Lara stepping in to remind you of your worth when your confidence is just shattered.
And we all know the cognitive drain of dealing with unpredictable chaos.
Totally. Whether that's a sudden crisis at your job or just the bizarre curveballs life throws at you that feel like you've been handed a literal curse.
The ring simply magnifies these universal human elements. It strips away the polite veneer and forces these dynamics into the physical realm.
It really does.
And as we look toward WrestleMania, there is one final, incredibly subtle detail from the source material that demands our attention before we wrap up.
Oh, right. It involves Randy Orton, the Viper.
Yes. He is on a collision course with Cody Rhodes for the undisputed WWE title.
What did you catch there? Because I know you spotted something in the backstage highlights.
Our sources indicate that en route to this massive title clash, Orton received what is being officially described as mystery advice.
Mystery advice.
A cryptic message reminding him that wrestling has more than one royal family.
Oh, wow.
Someone completely unseen is whispering in the ear of the most dangerous, predatory veteran on the roster. They are subtly influencing his trajectory toward the biggest prize in the industry.
That completely reframes the narrative. I mean, you think you are watching a one-on-one contest, but there's an invisible hand tilting the board.
It shifts the entire paradigm. So I want to leave you with this thought as you navigate the complexities of your own week.
Yeah, listen to this.
In the high-stakes arenas of your own life, who are the invisible advisors pulling the strings in the shadows?
That's a great question.
When you are analyzing the success or failure of a project, a competitor, or even a shifting dynamic in your social circle, how much of what you see on the surface is actually being orchestrated by someone you never even see coming?
Wow. The invisible advisors. That makes you rethink literally every interaction and every sudden shift in momentum you encounter.
It really does.
We have covered some serious ground today. From the shattered hierarchy of a preemptive physical strike to the sheer audacity required to bulldoze a veteran.
To the profound difference between transactional and transformational leadership.
Right down to the crippling in-ring effects of cognitive overload and paranoia. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today.
It's been a blast.
Next time you see a chaotic situation unfold, just remember, the loudest collision usually isn't the whole story. If you look closely enough at the psychology in play, you'll see exactly who is really controlling the board. Until next time.